And thanks for having me today. I'm joined here with Tom Franck from MSD. I know there may be some county folks on as well, but Tom is our, he's an assistant superintendent and really our SBU program manager. I'm going to do an overview, but some of the specific questions you may have, Tom might be able to answer. So with that, I did share, our budget update, and I just wanted to walk through that and explain what we've accomplished this year and where we are at with our budget expenditures, and actually highlight a projected shortfall based on our remaining program expenditures.
You mean a budget update related to the SBU program?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. Just checking. All right.
Yeah, I'm not going over all of it today.
No.
So just to give you a general overview, again, the consent decree established through our backup program is made up of 3 components, and that's really what you'll see how our budget is outlined and broken out. And so those 3 components of the sewer backup program are, 1, the customer service component, which is really our rapid response to reports and the cleanup that's provided. And when we get reports into our hotline or website during a storm, we perform timely investigations that is prescribed under the consent decree in terms of the time in which we need to get out there and respond. And then MSD will perform the cleanup of the immediate effects of the backup if it is determined that the sewer backup is caused by inadequate capacity, negligent upkeep of the sewer system. As you will see, and I'll share some of the reports from this year, we do not provide cleanup if we are able to determine, or if we are unable to determine that it was caused by inadequate capacity. And typically the reasons that something doesn't proceed in the cleaning phase is that we see a lot of overland flooding, stormwater only, or a backup that's caused by blockage in a private lateral. The second component of the sewer backup program is the claims component, and MSD, once we perform the investigation and cleaning, those customers are eligible to file a claim, and we provide that information about how to do so. And the claims cover the cost for documented real and personal property damages. And the third component is our sewer backup prevention program. This requires, the consent decree requires MSD to install systems or devices to prevent the backup of wastewater once the property has 2 or more eligible sewer backups. So eligible meaning they were caused by inadequate capacity. We've had 2 or more within 5 years. So MSD tracks, the eligibility for the prevention program, sends questionnaires to customers, and proceeds with performing a comprehensive site investigation and in order to design and install a solution. So getting to the 2020 SBU budget, as you appropriated $9.7 million for this budget to cover the entire program. And as of August 1st, 2020, MSD has spent about $8.7 million. So with that, and as I'll get to, if we keep pace at our current program expenditures, including the prevention program, we would estimate a budget shortfall of close to $2 million. So the 2 programs that are primarily responsible for the budget shortfall and that typically, are the most costly are the cleaning and the prevention program. So far to date, these programs have already accumulated a total of $7.2 million in expenditures for this year. The cleaning program budget, really the entire budget, but the cleaning is very unpredictable. And I think this year, what we've seen with 2 specific rain events kind of illustrate how hard it is to predict what we'll see in a typical year, and therefore to budget for it. So up through early May, MSD had spent only $138,000 on cleaning costs responding to sewer backups and providing those cleaning services. Then we had a big storm on, it was around May 18th, May 19th, that covered a few days. And that event alone led to over 1 million in cleaning costs to respond to those sewer backups. So you can see, I mean, we just jumped, exponentially in one event. We had another pretty significant rain event in July. It was July 23rd. And that event, I just lost my number, but that event resulted in about 400,000 in cleanings. I'd also just like to share, so the May storm, we had over 700 reported SBUs. We had about 722. So we investigated every single one of those. And we then found that 316 of those properties were eligible under the SBU program for the cleaning. So that's where you got that over $1 million in cleaning costs. On July 23rd, we received 204 reports of SBUs, and we determined that 137 were eligible for cleaning, so a much higher percentage there. And the interesting thing about the July storm was all of those eligible properties were in the Hyde Park, Oakley area. And that again resulted in approximately $400,000 in cleaning. The total cleaning for every other storm and report we've had in 2020 is about 600,000. So turning to the other large program expenditure is the sewer backup prevention program. And this is impacted both by what we are seeing this year, but also in last year. And as we've seen, we are seeing more and more frequent large storms, and therefore we continue to have new properties that become eligible for a prevention device installation. We have installed over 1,000 devices systems in homes to date. It's about 1,160. We've installed 61 already in 2020. That was as of the end of July report. And we have 79 in process. The costs of the sewer backup prevention program, which are detailed on the table provided, really can be broken down into costs for, we use design and planning services. Once we determine a property is eligible, we complete the investigation, but then we have professional services to design the particular solution of that for that property. And then we, of course, have the construction and installation costs. We also have ongoing maintenance and service costs for the pumps and the systems that are installed and the devices that are installed. So we have those ongoing program costs that continue to increase because of the number of properties that have become eligible and continue to become eligible over the years. And so that's where you will see, again, the estimated additional work and expenses this year. Some of it is for those ongoing maintenance of the already installed devices, and some of it is to continue to design and install new prevention devices. I do want to point out the consent decree does not have a specific line, unlike the other components of the program. Therefore, we work as quickly as we can in recognizing the needs of our customers and trying to, stop backups. But it can be scaled back, if the budget doesn't allow for us to continue at the pace we're moving. But again, today we have 79 that are eligible that are in some process. They're either in the design phase or we may just be working with the property owner to understand their situation. I wanted to share that MSD, is interested in looking at other ways to, keep this program, this portion of the program, the cost from continuing to increase, and also some of the problems with the prevention program is we aren't necessarily solving larger capacity issues when we do these, single property solutions. And so there's two things that we would like to further engage and discuss at another time, but just to mention them today. One would be, and these were mentioned in our draft budgets for 2021. One would be, and there's a lot of work to do to create a program that is a more incentive-based solution where private property owners could take on the work. Lots to do to investigate how that can be established in the terms of the consent decree, but something where there's an incentive-based solution where MSD would reimburse property owners, but they could design and install their solution on their own. It in some ways can go faster and perhaps help people before they have two backups, and we have other costs associated with those. And so that's one idea, and the other is really to have funds to do some more comprehensive planning for capital projects to address the capacity problems that we're seeing in areas of concentrated problems like Hyde Park and Oakley, where there isn't currently a WIP consent solution for those particular capacity problems. So both of them were mentioned in the budgets, and I look forward to talking further and exploring those, in coming months and years. But getting back to the present budget and program status, again, we do project a shortfall. I noted that there are funds that are remaining from a prior SBU appropriation that we would share to look into. If those funds can be made available for this year's program, then it's unlikely that we would need any additional appropriation this year. Those had been initially set aside for claims, and we think it's unlikely that we would need those funds this year. With that, again, I'm happy to get into anything in more detail, but that was the overview that we shared and wanted to provide to you.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to give an opportunity to either Holly or Karen to weigh in on the memo that Diana provided, and then we can talk through kind of the status here. So do either one of you have a comment related to this?
Good afternoon. I'll defer to Karen at this point if she has any comments or questions or feedback. But I appreciate the update. Thank you, Diana.
Yeah, I appreciate the update as well, and look forward to hearing more about the proposals for proactively trying to resolve some of the known prone areas.
Okay. So, and Diana, I will mention that you sent over the budgets yesterday, I guess late yesterday, related to the overall budget of MSD. And so that's not in front of us today, but to my colleagues, we've got the information. They're very thick documents as always. So we'll review those and deal with that budget within the next couple of months. So thanks for providing that well in advance. Essentially, I'm going to boil down, Diana, I think what you're saying, which is that the sewer backup program, obviously we don't know what to predict for the rest of the year, because so much of this is related to really heavy storm events. And that's when we see the largest amount of claims. And so you think we might need a little bit more in the budget in case that we see something still this year. So the 1.6 that was allocated for SBU in a previous year, you want to roll that over into current year so that we can have that available to us, and that would allow us to not have to make any other kind of appropriation this year so far, right?
Yes, that's right. I think with that, if those funds were available, we could continue at the pace we're at under the prevention program in particular. That's there. Otherwise, we would potentially need to scale back, those homes that are in the process of being protected. We don't know if we get another really big storm, if we had a large, response and needed to provide cleaning services, again, that could really derail us, and we would need an appropriation. But I think that 1.6 would get us to just where, we'd really cover what we know.
Okay. So, and let me point out that at no time, to my knowledge, have we ever denied money to the SBU program. And so whenever asked, we've said, yes, we will allocate more dollars to make sure that people can get this kind of relief when they've got sewer backups, and do some of these other things that you're talking about, which is a more long-term approach to some of the chronic properties that see these backups every time it rains hard. So I'm glad that we're getting to that as well. So one other thing before I turn it over, we did get a letter from Communities United for Action. This was, I believe, last week. It was probably just a week ago. They delivered a letter to all 3 county commissioners, and there was a petition attached to this. And so, Diana, have you seen this? It was dated August 13, 2020, and it's about the SBU program.
Yes, somebody did share a copy of that with me.
Okay, all right. We'll just want to bring this to your attention. There is, I think, it talks about the program and asks us to kind of double down on our commitment, which to me is a little curious because we've always said yes to this funding. And so I just want to reiterate that we are very supportive of this program to help property owners that have these sewer backup issues. It also does refer to the reporting period, and this board is on record, and I don't remember how long ago it was, talking about how we can expand the reporting from 24 hours to 48 hours. And so we will look forward to continuing to work with MSD on that, but we do agree with the residents that they need more time in order to report some of these backups when they occur. So I just wanted to make sure that you saw this letter, and we can respond to that issue here in the near future.
Sure, happy to work with you on a response.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, questions or comments, Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Thank you, Madam President. I know we keep talking about possibly increasing that amount of time that people have to be able to report the SBUs. So I'm glad that we're looking at hoping to finalize that extension of time. Diana, I wanted to thank you for the advanced information. It gave me time to kind of digest it, so I certainly appreciate it. And then I was hearing that no time the commission has ever denied any SBU monies, and so we have a different commission, different commissioners, and so I have no investment in denying anything at this time. But you know, history, sometimes it may change where we're not able to approve allocation. So it's okay that we did it before. We may not be able to do it again at some time, but Diana certainly explained where the gaps are and why we need additional money. So I appreciate that. Diana, I was just wondering in general, could you let those who are listening who may have a backup in the future, just let them know what phone number they should call or what website they should access to report that, please?
Yes, that's it. That's a very good point. Thank you. I should always repeat that when this opportunity. So this is a hotline that is answered 24/7. So any time of day or night, please. It is 513-352-4900. Times there are delays getting through there. So we also encourage people to go to our website. And that is if you go to our main msdgc.org website, you usually can see it right away. It's on the top banner. But the specific link is www.sbu.msdgc.org. So that's directly to the SBU page, and you can report online. And that initial reporting, somebody will be out there and respond to your event timely, so within the same day. So thank you for asking for that.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Parks?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just want to bring to the attention of people working that our SBU program is unique, that not every county does this. And it helps our citizens so much that when they have backups, when their basements are flooded, you know, it changes their life, it affects their property. And I'm proud of the fact that we go in and help them. Now, it costs a lot of money. You know, it's expensive, but it is tax money. And so we utilize what we have in order to help our citizens. And with this gap that we have, so it's 1.6 mil, Diana, that's what it is.
The projected gap is actually close to, there's 1.6 million available from
Leftover.
And we could budget to that. I mean, that's, you know, again, with the known expenditures, I believe the 1.6 would be something we could budget to barring anything unexpected.
I like this program. You know, just the fact that we don't leave our citizens hanging.
Yeah.
That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam President,
yeah, Jeff.
if I could just briefly, so Diana, could you talk just briefly about the mechanics of the primarily the timing related to the a reappropriation versus using this appropriation for the current year? I understand that the prior year is available, but could you talk a little bit about the timing? I don't want to get, I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to be spending $1.6 to $2 million. I think you guys are doing what's natural, and that is using the appropriation that's available. But just from an accounting perspective, would probably be cleaner, all things considered, if the prior year was closed out and a new appropriation opened. I just wanted to get a sense as to the timing of that. If the board is willing to move forward with the spend, then ultimately, you know, where it comes from is really, you know, a moot point really at that point. So what's your thoughts on the timing, Diana, here? Because I don't want to hold anything up. At the same time, I just want to make sure we don't get ourselves into a bind down the road.
Yeah, no, that's a reasonable question. And Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom Frank, who's on, but I believe that if it was preferable to go ahead with a new appropriation, an additional appropriation for this calendar year, that wouldn't present any, you know, immediate obstacles to us, because typically we can get that done in about 30 days, you know, fully completed. And I think we're fine from a timing standpoint from our program expenses, because we have a little over $1 million available right now. Tom, does that sound okay with you? If they wanted to go that direction?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter unless, you know, one of those hurricanes come up and hit us with a lot of rain, because like you said, that May one cost over $1 million in cleaning. So we're fine as long as we don't get hit with some very huge rain event.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Diana. So, Commissioners, I would just recommend that we, just to be cleaner, that we do a new appropriation for this as opposed to using a prior. Just think accounting wise, that's going to be cleaner. Obviously, if something happens in the meantime, then we do what we have to do. But this would, I think, just keep us clean accounting wise, and you're still ultimately they're still getting the resources they need to do the program.
So let me ask you then, so the 1.6 was designated for work, or designated in 2016. So that money has gone unused, correct?
That's the remaining balance of that. And there are still a few outstanding claims, but they might be a while, and we don't anticipate needing that full amount.
Okay, so Jeff, I'm trying to understand what you're suggesting. So we've got some money that was allocated for the SBU program that evidently is not available for any new claims from what I'm looking at. So at what point do those funds get freed up to be utilized other than what they were designated for to begin with?
So I would say, just to be clean from an accounting perspective, that once all the claims associated with that particular purchase order and that appropriation from a prior year are completed, that appropriation would be closed out and a new one open. So they ultimately will go back into the MSD, into the system for later use. But from an accounting perspective, it would just be cleaner that we're not using a prior year appropriation for the current year. That's all. So it's just the mechanics of moving the money around, but it's not without a distinction in terms of it's important from an accounting perspective.
Madam President,
Yes, go ahead.
I'm trying to understand it also because it's been sitting almost it'll be 5 years in 2021. So I'm just wondering, at what point do you just go on and use it and keep it instead of keeping it back in 2016, sort of to go on and use it now? I don't understand.
Right. So what I'm saying is you just go ahead and close it out. That if you have something that's that old as a purchase order or an appropriation, and if all of the obligations against it are closed out and finalized, that you would just close out that appropriation. Those dollars would flow back to the bottom line, but you're opening up a new appropriation appropriated in 2020 as opposed to 2016.
So you'll close it out at the end of this year?
You close it out when the obligations against it relating to the 2016 appropriation are finalized. And Diana says there's a couple of other claims that are still hanging out there relating to that particular.
That's why we haven't closed it, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just wondering, why do we normally hold on to it that long and not transfer it over to the next year? Okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, if I could, just that was a not an ordinary, that wasn't the operating budget appropriation from that year. That was it was actually, I believe it was in 2017, but I could be wrong. It was a singular appropriation with a designated purpose. So typically we wouldn't have any operating funds carried over. So again, we've kept it open because there are, as Jeff was pointing out, there are still some obligations that are not completely resolved.
Right. So my point is, I'm not trying to complicate anything. I'm just saying that if you have an appropriation from a certain event that was related to 2016, 2017, and they're finalizing claims against that to, once those are done, close that out, reappropriate for 2020, and then you're not, you're keeping those. Number one, it's cleaner from an accounting perspective, but also from an event perspective, you're not looking back and trying to figure out, okay, that was a claim that we paid in 2020, but it was on a 2017 appropriation. Which event did that relate to? It's just cleaner from a whole host of perspectives.
Well, yeah, but we don't know when these claims are going to be finished, right, Diana? I mean, it's like Stephanie, 5 years. So when do we expect that to be resolved?
I don't have the current status of the outstanding claims. I'm aware of one in particular that I know is, it's just finally getting to the magistrate. So typically they're resolved, in 2 years. But these have been, I guess, complicated, and there are longer proceedings that are taking place under the magistrate. So I'd have to get a report on that. I can do that and share that with you. It's only a few. I mean, a handful, I'd say.
And I think that was my concern, not to complicate it either, but I'm thinking, are these people that are waiting for monies, or these are projects and contractors and construction people? I'm just wondering, are these people that are waiting for funding or for reimbursement?
So are you referring to those outstanding?
The 1.6,
yeah. Those are individuals or businesses, property owners that filed claims with penalty that they have accepted, or there is an unresolved claim.
Wow, that's a long time. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I see a couple options in front of us. One is to let these claims resolve and then reappropriate the money at that time. There's another option to appropriate money right now outside of this 1.6 to make sure that the SBU program has enough funding in it in case we do have a major rain event. And then if we go that second route, and Jeff, I hear that's kind of what you're saying, then it does beg the question, what's the most appropriate amount? Because the 1.6 is related to what remains from 2016. Is that the right amount? We can always reappropriate if need be. But Diana or Jeff, what would be then the target amount that makes sense to cover us for the remainder of the year, not really knowing, if we're going to have one of these big events or not?
And Madam President, yeah, let me be clear. I was not recommending at any point that we wait until those claims are remedied or taken care of before appropriating new dollars here. I think you leave that appropriation in place to cover those claims, close it out when that's done. But in the meantime, you make a new appropriation for 2020. At the end of the day, the cash flow and the spend is going to be the same.
Right.
It's just a matter of what flows back to the bottom line and keeping a clear trail from an accounting perspective. I would defer entirely to Diana and MSD on what the right amount is. If it's 1.6 million, they think they can budget to that, that's great. But at the same time, if they think it's going to be a little bit more, I wouldn't hesitate to do that at this point, given the urgency of this particular program, and not wanting to have to come back. You could, like you said, you can always deappropriate it later.
So, Diane.
So I will share the update that we provided, the table. Sorry, I don't have it up on my screen, or I would share it. So this was based on our current expenditures and what we estimate to be completed in 2020. Again, the large deficit is under our SBU prevention program. So we would like to continue at the pace we are at with those additional eligible properties. And that is where we came up with the deficit of 1.9 million, closer to 2 million. So if we were to prepare legislation for you to do a new appropriation, that is how I would put it together. And that is the request that we would make, just because that's based on our current program needs. Again, that is based on our current spending from 2020.
And so remind us that, we're looking at the overall budget now of MSD as well. And so the SBU dollars that go unspent in one year simply roll over to the next?
No, that's why that one claim was kind of out of the ordinary, or that fund from 2016 is not our typical, our operation.
What I'm saying is, if we were to say, okay, if you need 1.9 or 2 million to complete the year with some of these more forward thinking projects, then we were to allocate, say, 2 million. We don't have a major rent event by the end of the year. Then, and we are contemplating the next year's budget already. Any unspent dollars for SBU that we would appropriate now in 2020, would they simply roll over into 21, or would they be incorporated into the budget for 2021?
Probably.
You see what I'm asking? Yeah. If we do, I don't want to, here's what I'm saying. I don't want to undershoot this. The 1.6 seems to be relative to something that happened in 16, right? And so if the need is really 1.9, then I don't see any reason not to do 1.9. And I'm only speaking for myself. So if we then, were to use less than that for the SBU program, would those dollars simply roll into next year's budget for the SBU program?
My understanding of this, and I wish I had a finance person on the call, but I don't, is that if they have been encumbered for work, so even if we hadn't completed it, whether it was under the cleaning or the prevention, if it was work that we had, we had encumbered those funds to a contract to do the work, then that money is still available. But if we had a major rain event early in January, those funds wouldn't be used from the prior year. They don't roll over.
Right, you would have a new appropriation. You would have a new appropriation at that time. So,
right.
Yeah. So that if there were dollars that were not used, and John just popped onto the screen as well. So if there were dollars that were not used, that appropriation would be canceled out. Those funds would float back to the bottom line. And I think that may be what you were asking, Madam President.
Yeah.
Is that they're not just going to sit there forever. They are going to ultimately be incorporated back into the reserve balance, into the general cash resources for MSD. If they were not used this year.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I just want to, yes, that's correct. John, I guess you want to weigh in.
I just want to affirm what we just heard and what Diana said earlier. The 2016-17 dollars are only still there because there are some pending issues with those projects. And then that's as long as the appropriations last. Once the projects related to that year are done, those appropriations are finished.
Well, I can only speak for myself in that the fact that they've been sitting so long awaiting action, I would be more comfortable of transferring that money into an allocation and then adding on if they need 1.9 or 2 million. If it's 1.6 in there and add 400,000 on, I'm comfortable with that, but not to leave 1.6 that's been sitting there since 16 or 17 and then allocate another 1.9. I'm not comfortable with that. I think and I don't know, I'm not an accountant. I'm looking at John. It's like how it's smoother to do it the other way. And then I just heard Jeff say it'll transition into another fund, but it's just, in my opinion, been sitting there awaiting action by other people. And I don't know why we don't just transfer that over and add on 1.4 for 2 million or 300,000 for the 1.9. I just don't get it. And I think it's just been sitting there too long. And if we have to pay it out, then we do it in another allocation. You know, I just don't feel comfortable with the 1.9 knowing we have 1.6 in the pot already.
And I would just say, again, not to belabor the point, Commissioner, but I would just say that, you know, ultimately it's all going to be back in the same pot.
Yeah.
Just, but from an accounting perspective, it's just much cleaner to keep the project separated by appropriation year and close 1 year out and start a new appropriation in the year that you're doing the projects in.
But we didn't do that. I mean, we didn't go to the next year, like, 1 year out and then go to the next year. We didn't do that for whatever reason. And it may be cleaner accounting wise, it just does not look right to me to have that in the pot for the same purpose and then allocate additional monies. So that's where I am with it. So I have no problem with the allocation. I just think we need to pull that forward into 2021. And if we have to use additional monies for what Diana was saying for claims, and we do it. But it just,
I might just recommend at this point that since John is on the line, is listening in, it sounds like to me that the board is fine with appropriating additional dollars for the SBU program. It sounds like, Diana, you've got a little bit of time to make sure that you've got the regardless of the best way to do it, you've got a little bit of time to work through here. They just have John work with Diana's finance people to come up with the best, cleanest way to do this and bring it back to the board for an additional appropriation if needed, or to report back to the board if we are using a prior appropriation. Either way, MSD is going to have the dollars they need to move forward on the program. So if the board's comfortable with that, I'll just ask John to work directly with MSD on the approach for making sure they've got the dollars to complete the SBU program this calendar year.
And I would just say, Jeff or John, John is really good explaining things to me. So John, if you could maybe offline or whatever, just let me know, because we sure want Hamilton County to go do it the right way. And I know you guys are advocating for that for a reason. So I'd appreciate that.
So if I may, this is Karen. I think Diana said that she would be providing a report of the outstanding claims for the 2016 event. I think it's important to see what the magnitude of that is, what our exposure is to the claims that are still pending in front of the magistrate or the court, so that we can, really be talking about what's real in terms of potential liability on those claims or not.
Okay, so why don't, internally, let's figure out the best way to do it. I mean, I think we all agree we want to fund this program and continue to fund the program. Just a matter of which allocation. So let's internally work on this. Did I hear you say, Diana, that it's a kind of a 30-day, if this board were to take an action to allocate more money for the SBU program, that there's a time lag there? What's the time lag? Or is there one? I thought I heard, maybe it was Tom.
That's just my own internal, what I would think I need internally to put together the draft legislation, get it to your folks. I mean, 30 days is quicker than our normal turnaround, but I think on something like this, since we've already discussed it, that we could get it completed in 30 days. And I believe we have that much buffer.
Okay, and we've got $1 million sitting in the fund already. So it gives us a little bit of
Yes,
leeway.
that's,
Okay,
yes.
all right, so let's try, so I'm gonna ask then, John and Jeff, for you to work expeditiously. I would hate for the fund to go to zero and have a rain event. So, and we can't get that money in that fund quickly enough. So let's get to this sooner than later and figure out a strategy to get the dollars that are needed for the program in the fund. So let's maybe by our next meeting have some kind of resolution in front of us. How about that?
Yep, happy to.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks, Diana. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. And Tom, thank you, Tom. We don't know you, Tom, but thank you for jumping on. And Karen. All right, our next item is related to the Hamilton County Fair Task Force. So we've got Steve Johns from Planning, and we've got Kathleen Norris, who was a task force member, on the line to talk to us about the recommendations. Again, this report was provided to the commissioners and lays out some recommendations. So I don't know which one of you would like to take the lead and walk through this report.
I'd be happy to do that. Again, my name is Steve Johns. I'm a planning supervisor at the Department of Planning in Hamilton County. And as you mentioned, we're joined by Kathleen Norris, one of the most active and energetic members of the task force. That's why we're glad to have her representing. I did want to.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second and just lay the groundwork here? So we put this task force together to try to better understand the use of the property that is provided for the fair out in Carthage. How the fair's doing. And we had a report a while back and looked at those numbers and saw that there was a decline in attendance, significant decline in attendance over the last couple of years. And we're trying to figure out a way to best utilize the property, help the fair, bring in some partners to try to make it all that it can be, really, in Hamilton County. Other counties are doing similar things. And so we thought it was time to have a group of folks come together, experts in different fields. And so we had ag people, the Ag Society obviously was on the task force, developers, Farm Bureau, I mean, all kinds of folks to talk about their ideas and how we can best move forward. So I apologize for not having given that background. So here we are with these recommendations. And I just want to thank the individuals that were kind enough to volunteer to be on this task force and lend their expertise.
Yeah, I do have a slideshow if you don't mind me sharing screen that can pop that up. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it does have the, just a second, please. Okay. There's the task force members. So to your point, it was a great group of stakeholders that included neighborhood reps, the city of Cincinnati, the Port Authority, really a great group of folks that you guys put together. And that was back in October 24th of 2019 when this was actually put together. And I think Kathleen would attest to that this was a very open and honest process that, you know, this has been a thorny issue for some time. I think, as you mentioned, Commissioner Driehaus, this had been looked at about 10 years ago. There was a previous task force in 2009. So a challenging issue for sure. We also got great cooperation from the Agricultural Society, so we did want to highlight that. I wanted to particularly call out Tanya Elliott. She's one of the newer members of the Agricultural Society, and she's acting as treasurer. And as we had heard during this reporting process that the finances got really sidetracked for a while in this organization, and Tanya has been one of the key elements to get that back on track. And no doubt we had some COVID impacts of trying to finish this report up. So it was a bit delayed in getting to you. And as you surely know, the fair was canceled this year because of COVID. So there are a lot of timing issues that we hadn't anticipated clearly back in October that have affected how this has played out. So I want to get right to the strategies. And the biggest one we came up with is before anything can get done, the governance of the Agricultural Society needs to be improved. There's a bunch of arcane laws that the ORC sets up for how you become a member of the Agricultural Society, and then even more requirements to actually become a member of the board. So things like getting 10 members to actually sign in person your sheet to become nominated to vote in person at the Fairgrounds a day in November. So some of these hurdles have created a system where the same folks have been serving for quite some time. And there also are not as many members as many of our comparable counties. I think in the report you see that other counties such as Franklin or Montgomery have on the order of 150 to 200 members, where we're hovering around 50 right now. So clearly that limits our pool of folks who can do the work that is necessary to put on a great fair and to maintain the fairground. So you can see that we have most of our recommendations are in this area, and some of them are starting to change. Now you can actually sign up to be a member of the Agricultural Society online. So that is something that has happened during this task force process. So we note that the Agricultural Society are making adjustments. So increasing the number of Agricultural Society members is the strategy number one. Agricultural Society members pay $25, so that alone would help some with the finances, getting more members. And it would also enlarge the pool of people that could actually serve on the Agricultural Society board. That would help expand the capacity of the board, item 2. Right now, the board does not have the makeup of some of the professionals a typical nonprofit would have. Often you have folks that are from an accounting field, or from a fundraising field, or from a marketing and communication field. Most of the folks on the Agricultural Society are passionate about the fair, but might not be experts in any of those areas. So really expanding the capacity would be helpful. The big strategy that impacts the county the most is strategy 3 on this governance issue. It'd be great to have additional expertise to actually sit with the board and help them through best management practices of a typical nonprofit. Things like having committees, things like always going over the monthly financials. Just a lot more transparency and clarity. Item 4 is transparency, but that would take resources. That's the one piece around this initiative that would take resources. And I'm not sure, Kathleen, if you wanted to speak to that for a second, because that is the kind of the one big ask from the county perspective that is in these recommendations.
Thank you, Steve. And I think that it is essential that the county look at this, because if we want the fair to, and can everyone hear me and see me? If we want the fair to survive and do better than to survive, to actually flourish, it needs to take steps towards more professionalism. It is a volunteer-led organization with a minimal staff. And it has always been constrained by resource, but that is kind of a vicious cycle. Too little resource leads to too little staff, which leads to too little resource. So the county can be helpful in helping to change the trajectory of the fair by giving them some funding that would enable them to bring in expertise. It is my personal opinion that that should also come with very clearly defined outcomes and benchmarks, because it's important that the fair actually move forward. It has been, because of the burdens placed on volunteer leadership, it has been locked in a kind of a time warp. We did some looking at other fairs around the state. We didn't do a ton of best practices benchmarking, but we did some. And we found that, frankly, we're just behind the times. And so we've got to move forward. But honestly, with the attendance at the level that it is, with the membership at the level that it is, with the fundraising capacity at the level that it is, and Tanya, who Steve called out a moment earlier, is a powerhouse. She's the first person they've had, I think, probably in recent memory, who has a fundraising focus. And she brings just a ton of energy to that. She could be assisted with additional expertise. But in an entirely volunteer-led organization with one paid staff member, this fair has fallen way behind its peers and its competitors.
Thank you, Kathleen. And then strategy 4 is transparency. Again, I get the opportunity to work with a lot of nonprofits across the county, and simple things like having your 990 posted online so people can see your finances. Monthly financial statements would be helpful, great. Minutes and agendas, all those things just give people more confidence in an organization that they're following the right protocols and best practices. So right now, those are still happening, but very slowly. And we'd love to have that fully completed. So that is the lion's share of the recommendations right there. Let's get governance right, and then some of these other recommendations can actually have a chance to happen.
Mhm.
The next recommendation is on buildings and grounds. If you've been out to the fairgrounds recently, you know that it's got a very worn appearance. There's been a lot of deferred maintenance just because there hasn't been enough funding. There's several 100-year-old buildings there that, you know, how those go, that they're things that need a fair amount of money. In the past, the neighborhood may have felt more unsafe. There's been a lot of great changes in Carthage recently. It's one of the up and coming neighborhoods of the city of Cincinnati. And so there's a bit of a bunker-like appearance to the fairgrounds right now. Barbed wire on top of the fence, gates, things like that, a very controlling nature. So those are some of the things that we think would go away if there was a master plan to make the place more opening, more available to the neighborhood, and just look better, look like somebody's really taking care of it.
And
So-
Steve, if I can interject there, I think that master plan is an opportunity for the fair to work with a variety of community organizations, including master gardeners, including in some cases through some youth programs. Nothing says welcome to the neighborhood like barbed wire. So I think we've got to improve those grounds, but I think if the fair has the kind of leadership that will enable it to form partnerships, I think they can improve their grounds with some cost, but we can buy that cost down. And they can also increase they can improve their perception in the community by forging some strategic alliances.
Yes, and so we think that a lot of the planning part could actually happen in a more pro bono fashion. We are blessed with UC DAP being right here in our community. They've done a lot of these kind of facility master plans, student project, but very highly professionally done. Would be a great start, a great way to get out of the gate and start to really document what the improvements we need to make this a first-class fair. And then there are just these general improvements. We have a little picture there in the slide of just making the landscaping more rich and welcoming at the main entrance. It's right there on Vine Street. Little improvements like that. We had a couple task force members that were really a little frustrated that there were still some demolition derby cars on the site. That just give the site again a bit of a worn down appearance. So there's some immediate things that we could do, but a master plan would help guide an overall way to invest in the site. Event services is one of the real bright spots we've seen, that this way of engaging the community and knowing that it's not just about the fair at the fairgrounds, it's about events throughout the year on the fairgrounds property. That's another way to raise resources. These are two examples of events that are happening this year, a barbecue, beer, and bluegrass event, and you see an event targeted toward our Hispanic community, which makes sense given the Carthage neighborhood has a high percentage of Hispanics. These kind of events are a great way to engage the community and go beyond the fair. And we've seen folks like Tanya and Crystal Holthouse, who's another board member, has really embraced this, and even as a volunteer, helped make these kind of events happen. And not only do you get the benefit of these individual events, then folks that might have attended these events would perhaps come to the fair as well. So you get higher attendance at the fair. And last but not least, branding and marketing. This is Kathleen loves this part. Come back to this. having a modern website these days is your front door, right, for marketing. And so we still have some work to do with the Fair and Ag Society website, but it's improving. And they also have a great Facebook presence right now. That's something that we've seen them really grab a hold of and take to the next level. Also a new narrative. You know, when you've had a task force look at you back in 2009 and you got another one looking at you 10, 11 years later, it shows that something might be not quite right. And many of the articles that have come out about the fair in that time period have kind of cast a bad light on the fair. Let's switch that narrative. I think there's a lot of interest in what urban agriculture can do, crafts and things like that. So there's a new day for the fair. I think we have to make that inflection point and spring to that new level. Kathleen, anything else on that?
Well, I think that what you've just said there, Steve, is very important. And it would be easy to say that the fair is an old-fashioned idea and it has no place in Hamilton County's present day and future, and I'll use Steve's word, narrative. I think that's probably incorrect. One of the former Representative Dale Mallory was very excited this year to involve some African-American future farmers that he is working with in the fair, and he got a lot of traction. Unfortunately, the fair was canceled, but he had been working, especially in the West End and other communities, to try to engage children in the idea of farming and where their food comes from, and how, you know, that it doesn't come in styrofoam packets from the grocery store. Cincinnati actually has a fairly good base of urban agriculture. It has Waterfields, which is a second chance work program, but also a producer of a lot of produce, which is grown hydroponically. We also have 80 Acres Farms, which is up in Hamilton. There's a whole approach to agriculture that Hamilton County is very much part of that could be incorporated in the fair. There is also an interest in this area from a lot of the younger consumers. The millennial and succeeding generations are interested in where food comes from, how it's produced. They're interested even in canning. They're interested to some extent in flower design. They're interested in baking. They're interested in a lot of the traditional fair endeavors, though probably with a new spin. And so I think there's a role for the Hamilton County Fair in our community, but it certainly has to be taken or brought into the 21st century.
So that wraps up the recommendations. I think an important paragraph or two we placed at the very end of the report. Now, task force reports come and go, right? And the really the ones that have an impact are the ones that get implemented. And so a lot of that rests on the Agricultural Society. They're the ones that are charged through ORC about putting on a fair. And so there was a chance in 2009 to embrace those recommendations and run with them, and that didn't really happen. So here we are again, 2020, similar recommendations, some stronger ones perhaps on governance. We got to do it this time, right? I mean, there's only so many chances we get to do this right. So I think we kind of call out that implementation is the key for these recommendations. If we're back here 4 or 5 years from now, you know, we've tried a couple times.
Mm-hmm. Steve exercised really good leadership on this task force, and I, as some of the commissioners who know me know, am generally the one who ultimately says the hard things and tries to say them in the nicest possible way. I think that we tried to make it very clear to fair leadership that we won't be back in 5 years talking about the fair, because in 5 years, unless they get really solid systemic change, there won't be a fair. So it is just that urgent. This fair has, in my view, a 2 to 3 year horizon to ride or die.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you both for all of the time and effort. I know it was challenging during COVID, but thanks for doing this. Thank you to all the partners. And there were many, many partners at the table. So, yeah, so I guess the question becomes, the Ag Society runs the fair per the ORC. And the question, I think, becomes, what is the county's partnership look like with the fair? And if it, if at all, we have to figure that out. Because what we know is the attendance is on the decline, as was said earlier, and we need some pretty significant structural change here. So I think you're saying that the attitude of the folks that are there now is one where they would embrace some of these recommendations and move on them. And if that's the case, then I think we as a commission need to figure out what our role is by way of a partner. So I love the idea of a master plan, trying to kind of map that out. Let me ask you just two real basic questions, then I'll kick it around. So what is the budget for the fair right now?
I defer to Steve.
Yeah, it's on the order of between 20 and 50,000, I would say. That's off the top of my head. So, the good years, it's up a little higher. There's some expenses that you might not, I think it's got to be a little larger than that, because they do have one staff member, the superintendent, who takes care of the grounds primarily, and that's a full-time position. And then just the expenses of the fair. So I think it's more on the order of 100. I should.
Well, you bifurcated the budget, Steve. I think they have about a $50,000 operating budget, which includes their staff member and their grounds maintenance and so forth. And then the fair is set up to operate as a discrete entity.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what attendance numbers they need to hit in order to meet their budget. That's kind of what I'm asking. So if you could provide that, and maybe relative, Montgomery County just redid their fair, and so I'd kind of love to see that juxtaposed to what they're doing. And then lastly, we talked a little bit about land use and whether or not, two things, the Carthage site is the most appropriate site for the Hamilton County Fair. And if the answer to that is yes, do they need the amount of property that is allocated right now? And could we share that property with other things that are either associated with a county fair or not? And I'm wondering if the task force talked about that at all.
We did talk about that, Commissioner, and we did talk about the possibility of sharing the site with things that related to the core value of the fair as the first line of defense, because I think for everybody, speaking candidly, I think the initial view of the fair leadership was that the county was trying to lay the base for a land grab. And we found ourselves repeatedly saying that that was not the case, that we were here to do a genuine analysis, and that if this site remained the best site for the fair, it would end up having the support of the community, or of the committee. We did talk about possibly putting a business like Waterfields, which in full disclosure is a client of my company. They are in the middle of a site search. Could they be a compatible partner on the fairgrounds? The use of the fairgrounds, the answer to the question of do they need all the fairgrounds for the fair is a modified yes. They need it because they use it for parking. If there were a parking solution, they do not use all the fairground for fair activities. So essentially, during the 3 days of the fair, they use multiple acres on which to store cars so that people can get out of those cars and go around the fairgrounds. Whether it is the best site for the fair, we don't know, because we would like to see the fair succeed. You referenced the Montgomery County Fair. We used them as a best practices data point, and they did move their fair, but it was a multi-year negotiation, site search. So we kind of thought, for right now, this is the best site for the fair. Long term, we deferred that question. Steve, is that a fair summary?
That's correct. I think we thought that the location is not what's holding this fair back. That the location actually is pretty good in a way, right? It's centrally located in the county, pretty easy to get to. And then it's got all those cool historic buildings. It's just a touch point for the county since 1853, right? And it's been at that site. So I think it's a really hard one to start the conversation at, is relocating the fair. Plus, there's a fair amount of sunk costs there. There's some stables, there's the grandstands, there's the arts and crafts building, there's an office building. So there's a fair amount of capital items already in place there that you would have to rebuild at the next place.
Okay.
I think the Montgomery County construction was easily in the millions of dollars when they moved to that new site. So it's a significant expense to move a fair.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I just want to thank both of you and your task force. If you could let them know my appreciation for following through on the assignment. And I thought the summary was very comprehensive and gave us some things to look at. And today I won't entertain the idea of whether or not we think it's the best thing or not. I think Madam President brought up, I was making a note about the master plan and whether or not there was any thought of decreasing the size of the fair, but that all has been discussed just now. So I just want to thank you guys for what you brought forth, and you completed your tasks, and it gave me some ideas, and I know we'll have further discussion on where we are with this with the fair. I went to the grand opening last year, and I believe President Driehaus was there also, and I was just a little at awe of the disrepair, I would say. And so that can certainly be done, but there's lots of money that would go into doing that if we make that commitment. So thank both of you.
It was a good committee, Commissioner, and it was an enjoyable assignment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Commissioner Parks.
Yes, thank you. Wow, you guys did a lot of work. You did a lot of research looking into it. I think you know that Commissioner Todd Platoon for years had been trying to find a way to make this work. I know that the committee, the task force that Commissioner Driehaus put together is dynamic. These are professionals in the field. So I'm just really looking forward to our fair reflecting the vitality of our county. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Holly Chrisman has jumped on. Holly, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you, commissioners. I just wanted to take the opportunity again to thank Steve and Kathleen and the rest of the task force. They did such a fabulous job. And I think one thing that's going to stand out, I think differently than 10 years ago when the last task force was put together, is we
will be solar. This also is a good impact for the planet from the standpoint that we will be burning fossil fuel. And that will be a savings in many different ways. This solar array is going to be constructed in southwestern Ohio in one of the counties. So it is going to create jobs during the construction phase, and then a few positions when it's operational. Right now we have approximately 40 counties, including the Verbals, who has committed to it, along with several other government organizations, some school systems, and some other municipalities who are willing to purchase, which continues to increase the size of the array, which decreases the cost. Right now, if the numbers hold, we're looking at about 8 cents cheaper than what we're paying our electric bill. The other plus with this is a guaranteed price fixed for the next 20 years. So that's where I'm at. Why I want to bring to you all at the next board meeting, not this Thursday, but Thursday night, a resolution to sign the letter of intent that Palmer Energy and the CCA can go forward with us participating in the request for proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask, well, why don't we kick it around a little bit? Are there questions or comments for Ralph? Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yeah, hi, Ralph. I'm encouraging, and the letter of intent is exactly what we need to do for all those reasons that you brought up: saving the money, increasing jobs, the environment, and the fact that the rate will be fixed and we will be left behind if we don't start using solar more. So the opportunity to be able to do that, I'm all for it. So thank you for your presentation.
Commissioner Parks?
Yes, so I just need to understand. So Ralph, you said that this is like a trial basis.
What it is Palmer Energy and CCA is going to put out a request for a proposal. Developers will respond to it. We're very sure that we will get a developer who is willing to build the solar array.
Sure.
When the request for proposal, request to purchase comes in to us, then the Board of County Commissioners has the right to accept or reject it, which will be sometime in early 2021. So at this point, there's no financial commitment at all on the part of Hamilton County. If we choose not to participate at this time, we may or may not be able to buy power in the future through this program. It all depends on any extra power that might be available at that time.
Okay, so that's the trick.
Yeah, it's non-binding at this point on us. It won't be binding until the purchase agreement comes. And we have to find roughly the amount of electrical usage that we need.
And just because I don't know, what kind of construction will take place? You know, what will happen to our buildings? You know, how does
nothing happens to our building? This is going to be out probably on a cornfield somewhere, vacant land in one of the other counties in southwestern Ohio, and then the electricity will be fed into the grid, and then it comes here, and we don't even have to make a single modification; it just has to pay the bill.
Okay.
So they won't be on top of our buildings, is what you're saying.
Right.
No, I got two right now on top of two buildings, but no, this will be electric power to reheat water.
Okay. All right. Well, that answers my question.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about this. I mean, I think, you know, it's pretty forward thinking, and I think we need to start moving in this direction to save the planet, as you say, Ralph. Let's try to save the planet.
We live here.
Well, that's right. And, you know, this has been on the policy document for a while now about trying to take our buildings and our work and make it more green. So, Ralph, thanks for doing this. Thanks for putting in the legwork. I know you're a proponent of trying to retrofit the buildings as we work through all this stuff. So, and like you said, this is non-binding at this point. So, so you will bring a resolution to us in 2 weeks, and we'll vote on that to get ourselves into the mix so that we can then make a decision later down the road.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you for that. Commissioners, anything else for Ralph?
I have nothing.
All right, thanks. We'll look forward to, Jeff Aludo just popped on. Jeff, do you have a comment?
No, I'm just coming on for the next item, but since I am on, I will say, and Ralph kind of alluded to this, but I think the commissioners are aware, and Ralph was a major part of this, is we do have, as he mentioned, solar arrays on two of our buildings, the courthouse and the Justice Center, to help offload the power demand from traditional generating entities on those two buildings. So that was something we did back when we did some of the major energy conservation work in our buildings. Ralph, when was that, 2012 now or before?
About 8 years ago is when we put them on the buildings.
Yep. So
Great.
Yeah, Ralph, for an old guy, you're forward thinking. It's good. We're all in that category except for Jeff. Jeff's younger than we are. All right. Thank you. Thanks for bringing us into the 21st century.
Yes.
Thank you, Ralph.
All right. Thank you. Very good. So our next item is the bank's update. So we're going to click through this. I think we've got two things to talk about, one in the past and one coming online right now, Jeff.
Yeah, so, and I'm gonna, Bridget's gonna share the screen for me here, and I think I've got Tom, is Tom on as well? I was gonna have Tom click through a part of this also. Yep, I think he's on. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kick it off. So I just wanted to provide the board with a brief update on the banks. Obviously, there was a lot of updates going on this in the media last week, and I just wanted to level set with the board where we are currently. Bridget, if you could hit the first slide there. This just a couple of pictures here of the Andrew J. Brady Icon Music Center coming up out of the ground here. So that's I just wanted the board to see the images there if you haven't been down to the banks and along Mering Way recently. Next slide, Bridget. There's another one from the other side. Okay, and the next slide, there we go. So we did come to an agreement with the city last week on advancing work on the Lot 23 Park, which by extension clears the way for finalizing the music venue down on the banks. And I just want to emphasize how critical this is, just from the perspective of getting this venue up and running and getting this attraction up and running down on the banks. You know, we've been in construction now for a little bit, so we tend to lose sight on what the primary goal is here. But especially as we come out of the pandemic here, to have an attraction and a draw down to the banks that is really going to help the other venues and the entertainment establishments and the vendors we have down on the banks, with the attraction of really hundreds of thousands of people to that venue, is just so incredibly important, not only to the county, to the broader community, but to that community down on the riverfront and on the banks. I just don't want to lose sight of that. But we did finalize an agreement with the city last week to allow us to move forward with this. Finalizing that agreement confirms several things, really. Number one, it confirms the 2019 city county legislation that we had done. Both council and the Board of County Commissioners had passed a temporary or an interim term sheet, which laid out the funding mechanism, the financing mechanism for this project, as well as the required administrative actions that had to happen. So we updated that document to make it current with the existing time, and executed that. That included the financing mechanism, as I mentioned, where the county continued to advance $4.35 million for the city's share of Phase 3B, as well as an additional $2 million related to what are expected to be the debt relating to the TIF, the Tax Increment Financing District, which is expected to dip slightly and then come back positive as we get other assets up and running down on the banks. One thing that's not listed right here also is that the agreement that we finalized with the city also included adding the city as a party to our agreements with the construction manager Messer and our architect THP as well. I'm sorry, it is the very last point there. So that is on this version. Bridget, if you could hit the next slide, please. Also continues to emphasize the county's contribution of land to the park. So the county owns the land and will turn that over, contribute that land to the city on which the park will be built, and that's worth in excess of $6 million. And finally, we executed the venue development agreement between the county, the city, and MEMI as well. And that's the document that just ensures that all the parties' obligations related to design and construction, the funding schedule, all the completion deadlines, MEMI's obligation. We've talked multiple times about MEMI's obligation to agree to pay for maintenance and operations on the site, as well as their contribution of $1.45 million to the park. All of those things are encompassed within the venue development agreement. So all of those things were encompassed in the agreement that we worked out with the city last week. I want to thank our partners over at the city, in particular, interim city manager Paula Boggs-Muthing, who I talked with several times last week and had multiple constructive conversations with her to get this over the hump. leading us to the point now where the permit has been reissued by the city. We have our crews back working down on the banks. Tom, I think you can confirm, I think we have everyone back as of today or yesterday. So we're moving forward again down there towards meeting our deadlines of December 31st for the Race Street Esplanade, which is the portion of Lot 23 Park right outside of the music venue, as well as a May 1 deadline for the Lot 23 Park itself. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update for the board, just to, again, level set where we were given the attention on this last week, and to make sure the board knew that at least on this particular aspect, we are moving forward. And want to also talk about another the next step and the next stage of the banks as well, unless there's any questions. Commissioners?
Yeah, so yeah, let's stop for 1 second, Jeff. So yeah, I think that from my perspective, the city and the county had made a commitment to MEMI and to this community about having this music venue open for indoor concerts at the end of the year, and then outdoor concerts mid next year. And so, you know, from my perspective, we are continuing to honor this commitment, have been very challenged by some of the delays that have occurred here. And so we are so far, though, according to your report, still on time. And so hopefully we'll have everything ready to go, particularly when it comes time for outdoor concerts next year. So thank you for doing the work on this. I know it was not easy. I know it was day and night, weekends, the whole 9 yards, trying to get this over the goal line. But I'm very, very grateful for the work that you have done and that the team has done to make sure that we continue to honor this commitment to the community to have the music venue open on time. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to comment from the other commissioners before we move on to the next item.
Madam President, I'm just glad that the city and county were able to come together and come to an agreement so we can move forward. And I see it as something that will continue to happen for both entities. Thank you.
Commissioner Parks.
Yes, so Jeff, I just want to express my appreciation for for your hard work, to you and to Tom and to Roger and everybody involved in order to move this over the goal. I know that it was challenging. There was a work stoppage down there that was difficult. So I appreciate it, and I look forward to this venue just being beautiful. Mm-hmm. I think that we're going to have so much fun down there, and I can't wait.
Victoria's a big concert goer, so.
Right, I live for music, to jam.
Yeah, you've got an ulterior motive here. So, all right, thank you. All right, Jeff, so let's talk about the next item still related to the banks here.
Sure, so thank you, commissioners. And yeah, so the next item relates to the Phase 1B office tower. We've also talked about this in the past as well, but I just wanted to update the board on this and provide some information on next steps. And this is where I'm going to ask Tom to weigh in as well. But over the past several months, specifically, the county and the city and the developer, Lincoln Properties, have been discussing the development of a 17-story office tower on what is known as Phase 1B of the banks. This is directly to the east of the Freedom Center down on the banks. This is a $92.5 million development. At this point in time, the county, the city, and Lincoln have finalized terms and conditions around the development agreement, and we're preparing to bring that development agreement forward to the legislative bodies of both the county and the city, and wanted to provide the board with an update in advance of that. So that's a little bit of an overview. Tom, I think you are on. If you could go, Tom took lead on from the county's perspective on working this development agreement with the city and with Lincoln. Tom, if you'd be so kind as to walk through kind of some of the specifics on the project, please.
Good afternoon, commissioners. So what we have today is a fairly major announcement. If you recall, the GE Global Operations Center opened in October of 2016, and the banks had long had in its plan that there would be, in essence, twin office towers that would be appropriately scaled to the banks on either side of the Freedom Center. And in fact, the building had been spec'd out and designed back in 2014, but it was significantly different than the one that we're proposing today. And we've been working since the fall of 2018 with Lincoln Properties. Lincoln is one of the largest office developers in the entire country. They have about 82 billion under assets and about 8,000 employees. They're based in Dallas, but we've been working with their Chicago office. And it's so basically what we're showing in this particular slide, you can see that there is a development pad that has been vacant. And it was again spec'd out for an office building. And we are moving that forward. And what's been proposed by Lincoln is a LEED silver building that they will build, and they're going to start construction in the spring, early summer of next year. And if Bridget, you can go to the next slide, and you can see basically this office tower is twice the size that was originally spec'd. We did put in extra foundations in order to do that. And that was a good investment by the city and county in that part, because as a result of doing that, building this 17-story office tower, and it's 370,000 square feet, we're going to double the TIF revenue that will come out of that. And also the number of employees in this building will also double. We'll have close to 1,600 employees, which is very close to what we have with GE on the block on the west side of the Freedom Center. And the great thing about that, and Bridget, if you go to the next one, when you look at the economic impact, it is pretty phenomenal. I mean, with GE, because of the concentration of employees, we were projecting about $1 billion a year in economic impact. We did our economic impact study, did fairly conservatively, but it's going to put another 700 million a year into our regional economy when this building comes on. That neither the city or the county had dollars back in the recession to do, and nor do we have it today. But rolling forward, for example, this building we can probably get about 30 to 35 million in financing, which will build another garage on the banks, more than likely on either 1 or 25 or 13. But this is a perfect funding source for that to occur. And so it's we're pretty excited to have it come to fruition. As Jeff mentioned, we have been working very collaboratively with the city and with Lincoln to bring this forward. Bridget, if you go to the last slide, the really interesting thing about this is there are no economic incentives that were required from the city or the county. We did not grant any tax abatement. We're not putting any cash in the deal to make it happen. Lincoln was able to pencil out their pro forma, build this. Really, it's a high-end office building designed by SCB Architects out of Chicago. And they're very bullish on Cincinnati and on the banks. And so they definitely want to have a groundbreaking in the spring of next year. So very positive announcement coming on the heels of a very good agreement last week between the city and the county to get the music venue and Smale Park on schedule.
So, Tom, we talked a number of months ago about this same office tower. Just given the experience we just had related to the park, are all the documents signed on this one and ready to go?
Yeah, so basically we finalized, there's a development agreement, which the city and the county and Lincoln came to terms last week on. There's also what's referred to as a specific declaration. That's kind of the formal document that gets recorded. And there's a whole series of other documents. All of those have been agreed to, finalized. All the exhibits are finalized. We were advised today that the city believes it has sufficient authority. They don't need to go back to city council, so they're prepared to execute the documents this week. And basically we're pending the board's approval, and we'll move forward.
Okay. Very
And,
good. So,
and commissioners, just on the in comparison to the project on lot 23, as Tom mentioned earlier in his discussion, the public infrastructure on this is complete and ready to accept the development. So that's we're essentially now just building on top of the podium that the city and the county created, which is a little bit different than what we're doing on 23.
right. And yeah, I mean, it's an exciting project. We talked about it last time it was on the agenda. So, yeah, it's very exciting to bring all those jobs down to the riverfront and all that activity down there. So, questions, comments, Commissioner Summer Dumas? You're on mute. There we go. Nope, still on mute.
I apologize. My phone was ringing, so I put myself on mute. Tom, I was thanking you for all your hard work and all the people that work with you. I'm sorry that you now have to live in a car. But as I was saying earlier, from one agreement to the next, and I just see that as we move toward the future. So it sounds like a great opportunity for the county. I really like when you say about no cash and all those sorts of things. It's music to my ear. And also the fact that the city doesn't have to go to the council to allow this to happen. So I'm just really excited about it, as I'm sure you are, and the other commissioners are also. So thank you for all your hard work.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. And we do have a great team at the county that works extremely well together. So they're very complementary with each other. So it's very positive. I did want to mention the one thing that we did put in place, and it's part of that master development agreement framework. The developers paid the city and the county $4 million with reimbursement in terms of the cost to build a garage that would support that office building. So that was part of that funding structure that we had put in place some 14 years ago. And but for that, we wouldn't be able to do it. So
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Parks?
Hey, Tom, thanks for all your hard work. I'm just so happy that this has worked out, and we just keep moving forward. So you get a 10.0 landing.
I think reminds me of Simone somebody. What was that?
Yeah, Simone Bob. 10.0.
The county gets that. The county team gets that.
So commissioners, absent any direction otherwise, we'll bring this forward on Thursday as a by leave. Tom, I think it's ready to go, correct? So we can bring this forward Thursday as a by leave and get this approved. And I think that would be a very positive message to, number one, the community, but also to the developer on this, that we're moving forward. As Tom said, I think the communication from the city was that they can execute this fairly rapidly as well. So the quicker we can get moving, I think the quicker we get the office tower up and running.
Okay, what's the completion date?
They're looking at late 22, early 23. They do have 3 tenants, which would take it up in terms of pre-leasing, Commissioner, to a little in excess of 50% is already leased, which is very positive. So I think we'll have probably a grand opening probably in early 23, more than likely.
Okay. Okay, great. All right, we'll look forward to that resolution then on Thursday, Jeff.
Excellent.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Tom.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right.
All right. Item number 5 is a budget adjustment.
So commissioners, this should be
payouts. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have if you think you have this in front of you? This is a budget adjustment, $1 million for the general fund. We put this on. We have in order to post payroll for tomorrow. This is not a cash issue, but an appropriation issue related to retirement payouts. And we've had some increased acceleration of retirements over the past couple of months. So our appropriations have lagged on appropriation for retirements. So we want to get this settled before tomorrow so that we can appropriately post payroll with the correct with the appropriations or the allocations coming from the correct appropriations. So, excuse me. So if there's any questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll recommend approval.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments, commissioners?
No questions or comments.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Very good. In that case, I will move that we approve a budget adjustment number 33, $1 million for general fund retirement payouts.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
All right. That completes our regular agenda. We've still got an exec session. Is there anything else before we go into exec session?
I have nothing.
Nothing. Thank you.
Okay. All right. In that case, I'm going to move that we go into executive session pursuant to RC section 121.22G4 regarding collective bargaining. So move.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Parks?
Yes.